Europe was engulfed in conflict. The 30 Years' War, which raged from 1618 to 1648, was a devastating conflict. It ravaged Europe for 3 decades. The war was fueled by religious and political tensions that had been simmering for years. What began as a local conflict in Bohemia soon escalated, entangling major European powers in a complex web of alliances and betrayals. The war pitted Catholic rulers against Protestant princes and drew in outside powers like France and Sweden, who saw opportunities to advance their own interests. The conflict brought widespread destruction, disease, and famine, leaving a deep scar on the European psyche. The war's brutality and intractable nature made it clear that a new approach to international relations was needed. The old order, based on religious uniformity and imperial dominance, had failed. A new system, grounded in diplomacy and a balance of power, was desperately sought after. By the 1640s, Europe was exhausted. The 30 Years' War had taken a devastating toll. Relentless fighting, coupled with disease and famine, had decimated populations. Economies lay in ruins. The once grand Habsburg Empire, a key player in the war, was on the brink of collapse. The devastation and suffering created a powerful impetus for peace. The warring parties, exhausted and depleted, recognized the futility of continued conflict. They also saw the growing risk of total societal collapse. A series of diplomatic efforts emerged, culminating in the momentous Treaty of Westphalia. The negotiations were complex and fraught with challenges. The congresses at Osnabrück and Munster brought together diplomats from across Europe. Their goal was to find a way to end the bloodshed and rebuild the continent. The talks were marked by suspicion, intrigue, and shifting alliances. However, the shared desire for peace ultimately prevailed. The Treaty of Westphalia involved a complex web of actors, each with their own agendas. The Holy Roman Empire, weakened and fragmented, sought to preserve its integrity while acknowledging the growing autonomy of its constituent states. The Habsburg Emperor, Ferdinand III, aimed to maintain his dynasty's influence while conceding some religious freedom. France, under the astute leadership of Cardinal Mazarin, emerged as a major power broker. France's goal was to weaken the Habsburgs and prevent the emergence of a dominant power in Europe. Sweden, a rising military force, sought territorial gains and recognition of its status as a major player in European affairs. The Dutch Republic, having secured its independence from Spain, aimed to safeguard its autonomy and expand its commercial interests. Smaller states within the Holy Roman Empire, such as Brandenburg and Saxony, sought to protect their own interests and gain greater autonomy within the empire. The papacy, its influence diminished, struggled to maintain its religious authority in the face of growing secularism. Section 4. Reshaping the political map, the treaty's provisions. The Treaty of Westphalia, signed in 1648, marked a turning point in European history. It was a complex series of agreements that aimed to address the causes of the 30 Years' War and create a more stable European order. The treaty recognized the principle of state sovereignty. Each state was given the right to govern its own internal affairs without external interference. This principle, a cornerstone of international law, fundamentally altered the relationship between states. It also affirmed the principle of religious tolerance. The treaty granted rulers the right to determine the religion of their own territories. This principle, while not fully implemented, represented a significant step towards religious freedom. The treaty also redrew the map of Europe, recognizing the independence of the Dutch Republic and Switzerland. It also granted territorial concessions to France and Sweden, reflecting their growing power. The treaty restructured the Holy Roman Empire, granting greater autonomy to its constituent states. This effectively ended the empire as a centralized entity. It paved the way for the rise of Prussia as a major power in the following century. Section 5. A new era begins. Lasting impacts of the treaty. The Treaty of Westphalia had a profound and lasting impact on Europe and the wider world. It marked the end of the era of religious wars that had plagued Europe for centuries. The treaty's emphasis on state sovereignty and religious tolerance laid the groundwork for a new era of diplomacy and international relations. The treaty's principles, while initially applied primarily to Europe, gradually spread to other parts of the world. They became foundational principles of international law and the modern nation-state system. The treaty's emphasis on a balance of power helped to prevent the emergence of a single dominant power in Europe for centuries. It fostered competition and innovation, contributing to Europe's eventual global dominance. It established a framework for diplomacy and negotiation as the primary means of resolving international disputes. This new system, while not without its flaws, helped to mitigate the frequency and intensity of wars in Europe.